Okay, everybody. Another busy day on the streets. Out on my electric bike, talking about whatever I want to talk about, right? It's a little bit, misty today. Still winter time here in southeast Texas, so this is to be expected. I'm just not a fan of cold weather, which is pretty funny because I spent so much time up in North Dakota the last 7 years. I'm just really enjoying being down here in southeast Texas, where we get down to freezing. We've even had times where we've had like 4 inches of snow right on the Galveston Bay, right on Gulf of Mexico area. But that's like once every 20-30 years. Most of the time it's just kind of wet and cold in the winter, overcast. But we have, pretty days also. So today, Joe Biden got inaugurated, and the liberals seem, of course I slant conservative, but I want Joe Biden to succeed. Like, I want him to have a good presidency and accomplish good things for America, and so I'm not some far right guy. I just kind of prefer a more conservative approach. A little dismayed at the GOP right now. They kind of acting bizarre, and Joe Biden got inaugurated today, so it doesn't matter what you think. He is now the president. Trump conceded. The process worked as it was supposed to, and we have a new president, and we have a historic female vice president. There's also some points to be made about the fact that she is half black and I think she's half Indian, so like that's kind of like an Asian thing there. So I mean, there's a lot of firsts there, and she's accomplished and all that. And vice presidents are largely ceremonial. I don't expect her to be, spearheading a whole lot. Much like, Pence really didn't do a whole lot because vice presidents don't do a whole lot. It's kind of a ceremonial role. But they're in, and so here we are. Just hope we have good things going. Now, what I do know is Democrats and people on the left, they love to spend money. They love to raise taxes and spend money. And we're probably about to see that in action. Now, if you go all the way back to 2008, when we bailed out the institutions that were deemed too big to fail, we run up quite a bit of debt, and we have not paid that back yet. And now we've entered new territory where, we started this COVID really slowed our economy down after it was doing really well. And in order to maintain in this economy, we've had to kick in the stimulus. And that's caused a lot of money printing to happen. We are officially printing money practically out of control. I say that because the money supply, like 35% of the money that's in circulation today is printed in the last year, right? Under Trump's reign. So I mean, this isn't It doesn't have anything to do with politics. It has to do with the operation of government. And they've printed a whole lot of money. And, you know, it doesn't take a whole lot to understand that if you print money and you don't have something to back it, which we don't. We have our fiat currency is not backed. It's only worth what someone will pay for it, basically. And that means that we are lowering the value of our currency every time we print money, right? And that effect doesn't have an immediate effect, but it certainly has an eventual effect. And what it does, by increasing the money supply without having anything to, well, you know, like we're increasing the amount of gold. It's not gold backed, but just so that we can understand, if you increase your money supply and you increase the amount that you backed it with at the same ratio, it would have the same value. And if you don't, then it lessens the value. And since we no longer have the gold standard, it's only backed by what it's worth. When you print money, you've basically you've devalued your currency. It's just not immediate, so people we don't see it. We don't always know that happened, right? Until we go to buy a new truck and it costs $70,000. And you think back when you graduated high school and it was much less. And you ask yourself, what happened? Why is it so much more expensive now? Because of the leather seats? Is that why? Well, yeah, some of it. But reality is it's called inflation. And that's what printing money does. It causes inflation, and lots of it. And so to get out of this COVID crisis, we started printing money, which is going to lead to inflation, which means people's wages buy less, right? There's all this screaming about pay people more, raise minimum wage. Well, you know, we have basically devalued our currency, and so you're lowering people's wages when you do that. The very minute you print, you're lowering people's wages. That guy's rocking out, man. So, I believe they're going to have to continue printing money like crazy. And they're going to have to continue to try to balance that in a meaningful way. And, you know, it could be that this Janet Yellen is going to be over the Treasury. Maybe she's got the skill set. Maybe she knows what to do. And she can throttle that money supply in a way that we don't have runaway inflation. But, you know, what I think is going to happen is the inflation is going to lead to things like gold and silver, and on the digital side, Bitcoin, and maybe Ethereum, maybe some other coins are going to look attractive to people, and they're going to accumulate them. And last night I went into quite a story about why I think Bitcoin's headed up, just from a monetary policy standpoint. So I won't repeat all that, but I do say that Biden already joined the Paris Climate Accord, which a lot of this stuff, like if you look at it from a concept level, you know, the Paris Accord is a great thing, right? Like we want to care about our environment, we want to do better, we want to be a leader in the world of showing countries how to do better. Because everybody knows that even though America has done really, really well and really tightened up our industrial production, we can't keep up with what China, Mexico, India is doing to the worldwide environment. Like, we could drive electric cars all day long, but if we don't do something about India with, you know, uncontrolled industrial processes, and so many people in China and India are going from a model where they never really drove a vehicle to where now they're going to, as everybody modernizes, everybody's driving cars, and the cars over there aren't so great. They're not exactly environmentally friendly because you got to have a low price entry. And that's the deal. If you have cheap cars, if there's a race on for cheap cars, then corners are being cut, and those corners are often in the form of the environmental side. And so all these new drivers in these second world countries are going to put quite a load on the environmental deal. But we joined this Paris Accord, which again conceptually is a great thing, but if you look at the meat and potatoes, like what is it that America has to do? And it's basically we're just handing over a bunch of money. That's what it comes down to. We're not making these other countries do anything great. We're trying to be leaders or whatever, but how about something that holds them to it? Like, that's what an accord should be. Anyway, I think all this stuff, all this giving away money and all that stuff, I think in the end is going to result in the money's got to come from somewhere, so we're going to have to print it. And when we print it, there's inflation. And when we got inflation, everything goes to hell. So Biden's got a lot on his hands in the next 4 years. My honest feeling was that even Trump, with his really robust fiscal policies, like before COVID hit, I mean, there's no denying that he had turned the economy around and was bringing us out of what he had been left with. And then COVID hit and everything went to hell. But it can be turned around again, And another thing that Biden did was cancel the Keystone Pipeline, which is largely already built. And we're just talking about final segments, and he canceled it. Killing lots of jobs and making it more expensive to get oil to the refineries. Because that's what it's all about. All the refineries are on the coast. I mean, there are some inland refineries, but generally they have to be around large bodies of water in order to help them cool stuff off, and also it makes it better for like barges and all that stuff. But most of our refining capacity is along the Gulf Coast. There were refineries like in the Philadelphia area and all that, Sunoco and all that, but a lot of those got shut down in the last several years, and even some on the Gulf Coast, cut back quite a bit because people aren't driving as much and they're not flying as much and they're not taking cruise ships as much because of COVID, and that's led to lower gas prices, which led to lower oil prices, which led to the collapse of the whole industry. It's coming back now. I read somewhere where there's like 86 new drilling rigs deployed in the last few months. So that's, just incredibly good news. Hope it keeps up. But when we drill for oil in those largely uninhabitable areas like North Dakota, Wyoming, that's all the Bakken shale formation, in West Texas. I don't know if you've ever been out that way, around Fort Stockton and all that. It's, it's not where people generally just love to live. It's kind of, it's quasi-desert, and the climate's not so great. It's super hot and a lot of wind, and in the winter it's cold and the wind blows still, and, just stuff like that. And so that's where we drill the oil, that's where we produce it, but we got to get it to the refineries. And so where you drill for oil, that's called upstream oil and gas, and the refineries are considered downstream oil and gas. But what connects that is the midstream, which is the pipelines and the gathering stations and stuff like that. And that connects the oil wells. Literally, the pipelines run to the actual oil wells, and they run to a gathering station, which usually consists of a whole lot of storage, like really big tanks, and higher capacity pipelines that then take it cross country, or truck loading racks, stuff like that, or railroad loading racks. And moving oil by rail is one of the, we've shown that it's one of the most dangerous things out there. And I personally think it's because of how they have cut crews back and on railroads. They used to have like 5 or 6 people running a train. Now it's like 1 or 2. And I don't know how well they're able to keep up with stuff, and I don't know how well their tracks are maintained. I just know that there's been some horrific, the train crashes and oil spills everywhere and burns for days. And we've had some really bad environmental situations from that. And it happens from pipelines also, but pipelines are typically in better shape, especially if they're modern. Now, if they're 50 years old, they're not so hot. But a good modern pipeline installed correctly under modern, API specifications and pipeline regulations, it's a good pipeline. But there's a political element to it, and they don't want the pipelines built. And they say it's because they don't want to pollute the water, or they don't want to offend Native Indians, and there's certainly some weight there, and there's certainly some validity there. But it's also it's largely it's a political thing. And so everyone says, well, if we would just go to solar. Hey, Jeff, how's it going? If everyone would say, oh, if we just go to solar, we don't have to worry about oil anymore. And that's true, right? I mean, here I am. I'm riding an electric bike. I love this thing. I wish everybody rode them. But, the reality is people don't want to ride electric bikes. I mean, some do. But ain't nobody wants to ride an electric bike consistently when it's raining or it's cold, or they'd rather listen to the radio and chew their sausage mac muffin on the way to work, and so people want their SUVs, and some of the biggest, loudest voices going, I wish everything was electric and solar. They get in their SUV and they drive to McDonald's. It just cracks me up. It's like, why don't you get a bike like this, man? Why don't you get a Tesla? Why don't you show leadership? That's what they say they want America to do. Well, you do it too. Turn off the SUV. Turn off the truck. Use electric power. Anybody in the power generation business will tell you that solar and wind make up a relatively small amount of power generation capacity in America. It's just how it is. The technology's not there yet. No matter what people will cry and scream and say that it is, it's not there yet. I've had people argue with me that we could do, that roads could be regenerative and all these great ideas, but man, I'm talking about get your voltmeter out and measure the voltage being produced by all these various means, and you'll see that it's not easy, and it's not as prolific as people would like you to believe. And I'm just going to ask you, just look around today. Like, this neighborhood has a lot of solar power. How much solar power do you think is being generated today? Not much. So what do? Like, you want to capture your sunny days. How do you capture it? Our grid is on demand. Our power grid is on demand. It is not store and reserve. If we could move to a really good store and reserve model, we could, set up a huge battery bank outside a nuclear plant, run that nuclear plant at max power for about 4 hours, and store enough power for 200 years. But we don't have, like that technology is not here yet. And, Elon Musk with Tesla is definitely pushing things forward. And lithium-ion batteries are definitely a leap forward from the NiCads of the 80s in the past, 80s and 90s. Lithium-ion is awesome, but it's also environmentally a disaster. You mine it right out of the ground, just like you do oil, and it's finicky. And just like with the Samsung Note 8s, if you don't do it right, it blows up. And that's because there's close tolerance and a lot of metal, kind of a capacitor kind of relationship in there. And if it's not well machined and a little, shard of metal shorts out, then it gets way higher voltage than what it's supposed to. And that's the part that starts getting too hot. That's when the explosion happens. That's just one example, but Apple had a lot of problems with that too. And I'd say that largely those problems have went away. We've got tighter controls, things are better, but that's a foam battery. So Tesla has this thing called a Tesla wall. And you put a couple of those up in your garage on either side, and it's basically big lithium-ion batteries. And it, you can produce power, you can generate power, and you can store it there. And then on a cloudy, rainy day like this, you can then run off batteries. Right? There's a good plan. It's an expensive plan. And who's going to pay for it? Of course, and those batteries are used. That's a lot of lithium ion, and that's not easy. It's not easy producing all that and putting it all together in that package. And that's just a couple Tesla wall units can run your house for several hours. Well, what if you have 3 days of bad weather? How many Tesla walls you got to have for that? A dozen? 18? So now you're talking about a significant investment. So if you do it from the power station back, because there ain't nobody going to drop $50K on Tesla walls, and then where are you going to put them? You're going to run out, and that's kind of dangerous having all that power strapped to your garage wall, So if the municipalities do it, now we got to build a big warehouse, and we got to put Tesla batteries all in it, and lithium-ion racks and racks, and all that's possible, and all that's probably going to happen one day to a certain extent. How you doing? Hello. And but it costs, and it's got to be designed right, and we got to have the manufacturing capability for it. And there's just a lot of concerns there. It's not easy. But to me, if we can get the storage, then how we charge the batteries, there's a million ways. We've even got biofuels. Same concept of how a bale of hay will, if it's wet on the inside, will start to ferment, and it will literally heat up. You open it up and it's really hot. Well, you can recover that heat. There's also gases that come off of it that can be used to spin turbines that create electricity. There's a lot of solutions like that, and one day we'll work towards it, but we're just not there yet. But I swear you have these people on Facebook that have no experience in the power industry or industrial or oil and gas, nothing. Like, I don't know what they do. But you'll have them go, Everything could be solar now. And it's like, man, what is it like just not being aware? Like, what is it like to just look around and not understand what's going on? I feel for some of these people. Anyway, he canceled the Keystone Pipeline, which is going to stifle the oil and gas, especially, stateside shale play gas and oil. He's killing us. And it's costing jobs. And I'm pretty sure he's got people, advising him, putting all this together. The poor guy is, he's going into dementia. And he was a career politician, and I don't know, you can get on him about his son and all the Ukraine and China and all that. I'm hoping if there's something to that, then one day somebody has to answer to it. But for right now, I can't do anything about it, so why am I going to worry about it? I just want him to make good decisions for America. I'm nearing my retirement, and the conversations I have with my friends, we're all talking retirement. I worry about my kids and the next generation, and if we're doing things right for them. When I'm thinking about policy, monetary policies, and all that. But I guess this is just how it was with my parents. They worried about how we were going to do it. Oh, there's my dogs. Hey, Foxy. And but this next 4 years is critical, and I hope he doesn't continue to kill American innovation and industry, because it will have a lasting effect. So that's my thoughts on the inauguration. But I believe that all this is going to be very tough, and even if Trump would have won, I don't think he could have pulled us out of what's coming. And that's my overall message. Well, we're coming to an end here. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Oh.